Anyway, we'll move on. Let's get an answer to this question. KC&M's question. In the crime drama Silent Witness, the bodies and the autopsies look very real. How do they do it? Well, hopefully they don't use real bodies. We are now going to speak to somebody who can answer this question. Ritchie Beacham-Paterson is a special effects supervisor for Artem. Ritchie, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, John.
This is one of those things that we are now sort of peeking behind the curtain to reveal it. I've always wondered this because obviously not so much in Silent Witness because they're already dead, but in some of these programmes you get a fairly well-known actor who, 20 minutes in dies, and then they do an autopsy on the fairly well-known actor, and you could see the fairly well-known actor lying on the slab, but clearly they're not doing an autopsy on that fairly well-known actor because otherwise they would, it'd be the end of their career, wouldn't it? So, so I'm just curious, where do the bodies come from?
Well, they're made, especially. We would, in cases such as that, we would life cast the actor, which means we would literally take a mould of them, and which is quite a long process, as you can imagine. It means them remaining very still,
right?
Which gives us a means to then cast out their form and then produce a mould from that. From which we would then create a silicon body double, if you like.
Okay, so basically, if you were to take it, let's pick an actor who's in everything at the moment. Stephen Graham, really good actor. He's in everything at the moment. So if he has to spend time on a slab, as it were, in a mortuary scene, or any form of those scenes where you need a body, he has to spend a week or so getting sort of cast, so you can then create the model.
No, not that long. It'll be a sort of a day.
Okay.
To cast him. We would cast him in the position that the model will be seen. So in the case of a mortuary, he'll be lying down flat, and so a day would be sufficient. The process of then creating the lifelike model is a lot more time consuming.
I was going to say that must be not only very time consuming but very expensive.
Yes, it's not the cheapest of processes, but obviously, as I say, there's a lot of time that goes in it, a lot of labour, and a lot of this is done. Well, it's all done by hand, especially the artworking. The hair is another key factor. So things like eyelashes, eyebrows, all have to be punched by hand to achieve that sort of lifelike.
There's a lot of artistry involved in this. I mean, we're talking about high artistry and craft here.
Indeed, yeah, very much so, and it's something that can only be done, by hand and by eye. So it's very much a creative art. So
when you see these bodies, they look very, very real, especially when they're doing the sort of, they're having a rummage around and pulling bits out and what have you. What's all that made out of? Because it looks like flesh and blood.
Yeah, indeed. Well, we use silicon, which is, very. It behaves in a very similar way to flesh. It's soft, it's flexible, like skin, and it also has a weight similar to that of the human body when it's cast out of a solid mass. So you have that weight, which allows when you see it, the body being lifted and moved around it, you can see that there's a weight to it, which is key.
And the blood is. I mean, you're not using real blood, obviously.
No, certainly not. I mean, that would spoil under light, and obviously that would be an issue for safety. So no, there's theatrical blood that we make, which is the various different thicknesses. So the sort of we can make it to be a fresh arterial blood, or a sort of a slightly drier, older, darker blood, and things like blood clots, which are more of what you see in an autopsy scenario.
I heard that called in the past Kensington Claret.
Kensington Gore, that's one of them.
So you do that body for something like Silent Witness. Is that like a one hit? I mean, I'm not talking about a famous actor. You've got a corpse there, in a state of decay or whatever. Is each one bespoke, or do they get reused?
Body parts can often get reused. I mean, at Artem we have a very large collection of moulds of various body parts and actors as well. And obviously the heads and the faces, which can be an issue to reuse because obviously they're so identifiable as an actor. But the body parts are often reused. And if we have a body that's of a similar size and build to an actor, we can often just use or do a head cast of the actor and then utilize another body that we have elsewhere.
Fascinating stuff, this. So let's say, for example, I wanted to take a body cast of Pammy, who works on the programme, because I was going to do, we were going to do an autopsy on her. I can't imagine why we'd do that on the programme, but I just may have come up with a whole new programme idea, which could run as a thing from next month, or not, as the case may be. How much would that cost?
It's a costly process.
Thousands, I'm guessing.
Yeah, very much so, because of the time concerned. But obviously, that also depends on the level of detail you want. So, in the case of autopsies, obviously, often there are body organs that need to be produced separately. So it's how long is a piece of string, but it's certainly an expensive process.
Fascinating stuff. Richie, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon on BBC Radio Bristol. And what artistry this is. I mean, when you think about it, Call the Midwife or Silent Witness, and you look at what's being shot, it looks so real because of the skills of people who work for companies like Artem. It's extraordinary.
Indeed.
Thank you, Ritchie Beacham-Paterson. Thank you very much indeed. And there you go, KCNM, your question, your answer, done.
BBC Radio Bristol.
The music that gets you moving.